And we're delighted to welcome in the studio Aleksandra Karasińska. She's a journalist and a women's rights activist. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So you went with ELNET, the European Leadership Network, to Israel to see the impact of what happened on October the 7th in terms of the sexual abuse and rape of women. What did you find?
Well, we discussed the general situation during the conflicts, not only this conflict in Israel and Gaza, but in terms of global use of sexual violence against women as a weapon of war. And we have a delegation, as you mentioned, of 18 women from different countries, mostly European, but also from Ukraine, but also Iran, refugee from Iran living in London, and Lebanon. So really a global representation of women, leaders, as you mentioned, and there were politicians, members of parliament and Senate, also journalists like me, and also leaders from a non-profit organization. So we were discussing how we could legally proceed to raise awareness that in many places in the world, the sex violence against women is a weapon of war, and it should be prosecuted as such.
So, deepening the subject, what personally motivated you to join this historic mission, I believe, and how did it impact your perspective on gender-based violence?
Well, I have to tell you that it was a difficult mission. It wasn't easy to meet and talk to victims of massacre, last year massacre, Hamas massacre that was conducted on Jewish citizens, civilians. And I was shocked actually by the stories that were revealed during these meetings, and the fact that the violence was so horrible. Like women were burned alive, were beheaded, were raped in front of their families and children. And still, there are 100 people kept alive somewhere in the tunnels under Rafah probably. And 17 of these hostages are women, young women, and their families are really, really worried and desperate, not only for their lives, but what is going on with them now.
Right. I mean, we are hearing stories from hostages who have been released of the rape and other sexual violence going on with the female hostages. What did you find? What were the remedies? I mean, clearly these women are going to need both physical and mental support when they return. What would you like to see happen?
The result of the conference, our talks, were that there should be some legal recognition in the international community that these atrocities against women should be punished as such, as a weapon of war. So it should be recognized legally and should be persecuted as such. So we don't have right now in our legal international system the recognition that the sex violence against women is a weapon of war and should be prosecuted specifically as such. So what I would advocate for is to talk about the subject and also make action to proceed with the legal action accordingly.
And speaking of action, as a participant now of this delegation, what actions or initiatives do you plan to take back now to our country to raise awareness about the gender-based violence?
Well, first of all, my mission is to talk about the situation and raise the voice of the victims. Also, many of them are dead. So also during the conflict, it's very easy, military conflict and political conflict, it's very easy to forget about women, about victims, about specific people who suffer. So it's very important to remember and also, talk about it, but also put pressure on politics and politicians. And I also hope that here in Poland we will discuss this. also because we have ongoing war on our eastern border, and the Russian soldiers, as we know, and that we have proof of that, used gender-based violence against Ukrainian women. So this is not only a specific problem in Middle East or in Gaza or in Israel, but also globally.
Yeah, I mean, it is surprising, isn't it, that the use of sexual violence in this way in war has not been, specifically identified as a war crime. Why is it that this kind of violence has simply not had the profile that other kinds have?
Well, first of all, I would like to tell you why it's so widely used. For example, in Israel, Hamas terrorists use these horrific crimes against women to humiliate the society, to spread terror, and this is the very good way of spreading terror, to break the spirit of the nation. So, humiliating your women and degrading them means degrading the spirit of the nation. And the same, I think, the same motive have the Russians in occupied territories in Ukraine. So, in this way of thought, women are just a tool to gain some specific terrorist goal, but they are not subject. They are just a tool to do something. But also, so if you ask me why it's so effective, and in the sense of spreading terror, is that we have those societies that are especially such groups as Islamic terrorists. They don't treat women as equals, so they can do with them whatever they want. They think that. So this is something really obnoxious for me and absolutely unacceptable. That's why I think we should talk about it and we should change it, because I'm afraid that if we allow this procedure, this horrifying acts of terror to happen, we might have seen it very soon in Europe, because it's effective. Yes. So when we saw bombers in the Middle East happen, we then had the same in France or in Belgium, in Madrid, etc., etc. So my fear is that if we allowed gender-based violence happen around the globe systematically and effectively used, and not without punishment, we might see it on our soil very quickly.
Which clearly shows that also time is of the essence, and now that multiple tools have to be used so that now these atrocities would not happen ever again. Thank you so much, Madam, for joining us and sharing your invaluable insights.
Thank you.